Welcome to Resume the Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Page, and I'm here to spread the message that you can, in fact, be happy in your career. I'm a former executive recruiter turned career coach, and I am obsessed with learning about why people have chosen their career, what led them to that decision, and how they achieved happiness in the process. So, come join the ongoing conversation that exposes you to career paths of all origins with one thing in common: happiness. So, press play and let's resume the conversation with this week's episode. We have a very special episode today of Resume. Back on episode 10, we welcomed the wonderful Corey Heyman, aka the Coco Yogi. She is the founder and creator of the Coco Market here in South Florida, which, just to refresh you if you didn't listen to that episode or you forget, it is basically a traveling market centered around healing and happiness. So today we have two wonderful vendors that are so grateful to have on today. Taylor Bloom, who is the founder and creator of the Rescue Collection, which is a clothing line that rescues forgotten fabrics and reworks them into new, fashionable, and sustainable garments. Some materials are sourced from thrift stores and some are donated, and they're always cleaned. They're cut and sewn by hand into entirely new pieces. The Rescue Collection dresses your inner activist. I love that, and I have so many questions for her. Our second vendor here today is Luis Angel, who I hope I'm saying your name correctly. He is just a light being. He is a sound healer, a retreat host, and yogi. Luis believes that we are here at this moment to collectively elevate our frequencies for the evolution of Earth, transmitting vibrations from the multiverse and beyond through divine intuition. He offers many ways to tap into the rhythm of Earth, spirit via sound healing, yoga, retreats, and unique experiences. On a normal day, you'll find Luis naked in the sun, eating exotic fruits, enjoying the beauty of life on Earth. I love that. Thank you for including that in your bio. I love it. And if you look at Luis's Instagram, it's like the most freeform, beautiful expression of just like living in your body. I love it. Thank you, everybody, for being here on this super special episode. Yeah, so I think I'm going to start with the question that I start off with every guest. So I'm going to start with Taylor. Taylor, what do you do? If you were at a dinner party and someone came up to you and asked you, what do you do? What would you say?
I listened to other podcasts, so I knew this question was coming.
Oh, no.
I think I'm most proud of myself when I answer I'm a small business owner. I feel like I'm like America's sweetheart right here. I love that identity. I think it's so important. And then to explain exactly what the small business is, I say it's called the Rescue Collection, and I call it that because I make everything from rescued materials. So I find discarded fabrics and I recreate them into new one-of-a-kind pieces, mostly with the BTA Florida feel, sewn in the hopes of the larger mission of helping people to generally live a more sustainable, eco-friendly lifestyle and to get excited about it and understand that it's an incredibly rewarding experience in everything from terms of like finance to aesthetics to being sustainable and giving back and kind of this meaning of the color.
Awesome. Luis, if you were at a dinner party and somebody came up to you and was like, Luis, what do you do? What would you say?
I typically always say I'm a multi-dimensional artist and creator. Wow. I'll share more info because I feel like there's so much that I do and I offer that multi-dimensional artist and creator encompasses the ethos and piques people's interests. And deeper, I let people know that I'm a sound healer, retreat host, yoga instructor. I also make all of my own clothing and just overall lover of life and devoted to living my best life and helping others do this.
I love that. And yeah, so a question that I have for both of you is, and Luis, you answered this, but what is the general feedback or reaction that you get from people when you do tell them what you do, Taylor?
I think people love it. I think in their minds, they might be picturing like a lot of patchwork or maybe that don't necessarily feel high end. I think when people hear Goodwill a lot, sometimes their mind drops to immediately to like a low price point or that I'm just flipping. And especially when I do the in-person markets, I really make a concerted effort to tell them the story of what the piece used to look like. And because obviously they're only seeing like the afters in person. So I love using the internet as well to show people like the complete transformation process. But I think in general, people have a really positive reception of it and feel really excited to hear the story. They'll grab a piece and be like, oh, what did this used to be or what did that used to be? So I think people are pretty happy to hear about it. I haven't gotten any negative reactions yet.
Yeah, that's good. And Luis, you said that everyone's, oh, wow, okay. When people do react not knowing what to say, do you typically go into a little bit more detail or are you comfortable just leaving it at that and letting it simmer?
It always depends the person and the setting, but I feel like typically people are always very curious. A lot of people often aren't familiar with sound healing. But I feel like a question that always comes up when I'm talking about what I do, they're like, oh, cool. Is this your side gig? Like your hobby? Like, what do you do full time? Like, what do you do to generate income? It always comes down to that. People always ask, what do you do? It's the real question because I do lots of things. I breathe, I sleep, I eat, I frolic in the sun. But I feel like when people ask this question, like simmers down to like, how do you generate income? How do you sustain yourself? So I feel like people are always a little shocked or wowed, inspired, impressed when I share that this is what I do full time and that I don't have a regular 9-to-5 job and this is how I live my life.
Yeah, I love that. And that is really what both of you said really goes to the core of what I wanted to showcase with this podcast and my mission for this podcast, which is there are so many careers. There are so many people in careers that they just don't like. And it's very upsetting to know the statistics are insane. And I think a big issue around that is the lack of knowledge and lack of education around careers and that there are so many different types of careers that people just aren't aware of. So, Luis, I think that's so interesting that it always comes down to what's your real job. And you're both really wonderful examples of creating a career that is meaningful to you while sustaining your life. So thank you for coming on and sharing this. I think it really speaks to really like the thesis of this podcast. Corey, I asked Corey to bring some vendors on because we had such a lovely conversation and just what you've done with Coco Market is so incredible. What was so unique about Taylor and Luis that you wanted to have them share their story here?
I love that question. Also, hello. I was sitting down and the idea in my mind was like, how can we really showcase what Coco Market do for people beyond the sales you make at the event? Like, what are the connections that you can make that will be longstanding, that will open up doors, that will create relationships that will then feed them in other ways? And I think a lot of things come down to energy. And when I thought about who I wanted to have this conversation with, Luis and Taylor were just like top of mind. I think in very different ways, I think that this event has brought them abundance. And I just wanted to hear from their perspective. It's not really something Luis and I have really talked much about, but I see it in his life and it's just so amazing. And I think that we have a cool story of how our relationship started. And Taylor sent me a message not too long ago that just said something to the effect of, you really helped raise Rescue Collection up and helped me believe in myself in order to expand. And I love what both of them are doing separately. And I think just having this conversation, all four of us, it felt like it was going to be special.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go into a little bit what each of you do. So Taylor, you moved down pretty recently to Florida from New Jersey from what I gathered during doing my research about a year and a half ago. Why did you choose Delray?
That was like the very condensed version of the timeline. I've actually been coming back and forth to Florida for over a decade because my mom moved here after my parents got divorced. So my mom lived in Delray. I'm actually at her house right now.
Okay.
So I was very familiar with the area. I had to move Maine to take care of my dad was sick. And then as soon as he got better, I was like, I'm going to Florida. This is like where I want to be. I had been in Florida, I had to leave to take care of him, and then came back as soon as he was doing better.
Okay.
Delray specifically, I really liked that I had like a spiritual awakening, and I felt like Delray had offered a spirituality. I felt like suddenly I could talk about things that other people had already thought about or had been on their mind. And it felt like up north that just didn't exist as much for me as it did here. You probably heard of like some yoga studios and books. Like it feels like our little spirituality capital almost. That really appeals to me. And then as far as Florida and Temple, I was just fiending for the ocean. I was always coming down here on vacation. It just felt like this paradise. I year-round gardening and all of it. Being warm all the time, being in a bathing suit, it just sounded so much nicer than Boston friends taking care of my dad. It was just, I was like shriveling all day.
So I want to talk a little bit about fashion. Where did fashion start in your life? Where did that interest peak and why did you end up following it?
I think what you wear is like when you get dressed in the morning. Sometimes it's your first active creative expression of the day. It's once you can feel such a vibe when you're like feeling yourself, feeling your outfit. And then now that I know how to sew, I can see the difference. It's just sometimes like a quarter of an inch can make on how it moves and how you wear it and the confidence it can give you. I've always loved the process of getting dressed that I don't even really have the first memory of because it's just always been there with me. Like in college, I was definitely like the friend who everyone wanted to come borrow clothes from. It was the first job I had out of college. I worked for a fashion brand called Halston, now Halston Heritage in Los Angeles for 3 years, and I was on their design team.
Oh, cool.
Was not the creative experience that I was hoping for. It's weird that I'm like calling out the company on this particular, but we were copying a lot to the point where it felt like counterfeit. Like it just wasn't creative. So I started taking sewing classes after work to learn how to make my own clothes. Then I started posting those online, got a lot of positive feedback.
So while you're learning how to sew, which is such an interesting, first of all, I need to point out that I love that we have someone who makes clothing here. Both of you make clothing. But also Luis, who is typically naked. Like, I really like the difference in guests. I love it. But I want to ask really quick about, I think it's one thing to enjoy getting dressed, and it's another thing to learn how to sew and make your own clothing. A lot of people don't do that. There are so many different routes you could have gone down in the sustainable fashion arena. What made you so sure about making your own clothing as opposed to, I don't know, having a shop where you sell sustainable clothing? Or there are a lot of different ways to do that. And I feel like making your own clothing and having your own clothing line is really ambitious, which I love. And where did that thought come from? And how did you start on it?
I think a lot of the quote, I want to say it's Einstein quote. That can be wrong, where he says you can't solve problems with the same thinking that creates them. And that honestly is one of the most common questions I get. People are like, how are you going to scale? How are you going to scale? How are you going to scale? And referencing the fact that it is all handmade. So as far as like starting a brand like the typical way and going right to the factory and wholesaling, that was something I was like fighting against. So I was not like start it that way. I was definitely going to start it handmade and try and create an example of something different. Especially because I want people to feel like the value in what they're bringing home to them. This is a really special piece, like a lot of time here, like even because they're secondhand, it's already coming to me with the story of its previous owner, and then I'm constructing it and reconstructing it into something new. So I think when people like put money behind something, hear the story of it, they cherish it a little bit more, they feel more special when they wear it. And then hopefully they are encouraged to not continue to fund the fast fashion machine that is really just destroying the lot. It was like I say, it's sewn in bolts of something different. I didn't want to start something that I just saw the problem so clearly, and I was not like going to sacrifice my integrity by just doing it the same way. And I do have plans in the works of scaling, but in a very, very different way. And I still I want it to be extremely universal. I don't want it to be mass market and everyone to have recipe collection. Like I love that like locals have it mostly. I love that like people at Coco Market have it mostly. That is so much more of a special like type of customer to me than like the in stores that I feel like have been doing it the long way. I'm not excited to be like custom seed or take that. I really want to
think about the scale. What is your immediate plan for that?
There's one big thing that I'm like trying to keep under wraps right now, so I can't.
Oh no, tell us.
The answer to that question, it's in the works, and I'm hoping to announce it by November. But the other thing that I'm looking to really scale is just like the price point. Like I would like it to almost be thrift meets couture, where you're like paying luxury prices, knowing that these are all extremely limited edition as opposed to like having a low price point, like making thousands or something.
Yeah.
Like the price point and trying to break into.
Luis does the same thing. And I think it's cool that you guys are both on, because Luis has, I think, been making his own clothes for a long time, but he's also started making these. There's only a few of certain pieces. So I just wanted to bring that into the conversation.
Yeah. And have you guys ever worked together on clothing?
No, but I feel like our missions are like very aligned. And I always think there's a big sustainable clothing company called The Reformation. Their tagline is like being naked is number one most sustainable option, and we're number two. And I always thought that would have been, if Luis had thought of it first, that like accurately describes his lifestyle probably more than Reformation.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And so another thing that you had on, I think it was in your bio that you had sent me, was that you're creating and growing at the same time at Coco Market. And I love that idea because I think a lot of people have this notion that they have to have everything figured out in order to start the business, whatever that is. And so I just wanted you to touch on that a little bit. And what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's very true. I feel like I'm constantly creating as I'm learning and growing. And I feel like a lot of what I do stems from me creating something that I want to experience in the world that I'm not finding. That's how I got started creating my own clothes. I always loved fashion, and I could never find exactly what I wanted that fit me the right way or within my price range. Just one day I had this epiphany, oh, I can make my own clothes. And it's been making my own clothes since 2015. And it started off just for me as a way for me to live authentically and wear exactly what I wanted. As Taylor mentioned, what you put on the day is like your second layer of skin, and it's how you show up in the world. Because unfortunately, I can't step out naked in my favorite outfit in most places.
In most places, yeah.
In most places. And so clothing is like a representation of what you want to radiate out into the world, is what you want other people to see you as. It's your first impression. So I was wearing my own clothes for a long time, and I'd always just get people stopping me on the streets or whatever and asking me like, I love this piece. Where did you get it? I've been looking for something like this. Where did you buy this? And every time I shared, oh, I made it myself and I only wear what I make. People are always like, oh, wow, like, where's your site? Where can I buy it? And when I started, it was never intention for me to create for others. It was creating for myself as a way to come back into my authentic being and self-expression. So the creating and growing very much happens with my clothes, of just so many people constantly asking, where did you get that from? And then I made it, I want to buy it, just like constantly going through. I'm like, you can't buy it. Sorry. And eventually, okay, I will make a few pieces here and there, and started creating kind of capsule collections for people to purchase. And it wasn't until Coco Market that I started to create more to sell more. Finally understood the need that people want this kind of clothing, and not everyone has the same drive, capacity, or patience to learn how to make their own clothing. In the beginning, I very much felt like I was going to lead workshops or teach people how to make them themselves. But just so much in the culture we live in, people just want to buy it, support it, and rock it, as opposed to doing like the time consuming work of learning and making it for yourself. It's a big task to create your own wardrobe, your entire wardrobe.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of how it started, just like creating and growing, and simultaneously with my other things of sound healing, yoga, retreats. I was like, okay, all of this I see in our world, but I yet to attend a retreat because none of them speak directly to what I would want in a retreat experience. Or I go to many yoga classes and I like have these beautiful aha moments in each class, but no class that I've attended brings it all together. I've been to several sound healing experiences where it's very beautiful, but it's not the all-encompassing experience that I imagine myself. So that's how I see the creating and growing simultaneously for me, is just seeing a desire for myself that isn't existing or that I haven't found in the world or in my local community, and just believing in myself and doing it and sharing the thing and trusting that if I desire it, other people will also enjoy it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think whenever I hear stories of people who are really happy doing what they're doing for their career. It's like it always starts out with the person just doing the thing that they enjoy and other people being attracted to that energy, and that it's like a magnet, and you're just really solidifying that. And I love that. And I want to ask you about sound healing with this side story. I have always wanted to do sound healing and I never did it until this past Saturday. And I was like, okay, I know it's going to be meditative. And I had like general idea of what it was. It was bonkers. Like I think I texted my friend after. I was like, I think I was in the fucking ether. I don't even know what happened. Because I think that it's something now, at least, that people are a little bit more familiar with. It's becoming, you can see it on Instagram, like sound baths and all that. What if someone's not into it or just hasn't really heard of it or had a real good like description of it? Can you explain what a sound bath is and why one would go to one?
So the most kind of basic ways I describe sound healing to people is it's adult nap time, it's a guided nap, or it is like a massage for your soul. And that's like my generic description of it for someone who's never experienced it. And if I want to go a little deeper with them, if they're like still confused, I explain that everything in this life has a frequency and a vibration. The screens we're looking at, the devices we're on, the table that our devices are on, the tree outside, and ourselves as well. And throughout the human experience, we go through different traumatic experiences. We repress certain emotions, things come up, and just life happens as life occurs. And this creates blockages of our energetic flow and disharmony of our inherent frequency inside of the body. And what happens during a sound bath is the healing instruments that are played transmit certain frequencies, sounds, and vibrations that help bring your body back to its harmonious state of love, peace, and abundance, and help break through those blockages that have been created through life, and just bring you back to an overall sense of being that many of us have forgotten, or we're just so caught up with the daily grinds that we don't make the space to simply be.
That's beautifully said. Thank you. How do retreats fit in to what you do? So you host retreats. I think that's another thing that, at least for me, I've never been on a retreat, and I see them and they're always like these beautiful pictures. And I'm like, what is a retreat? Like, what do people do on retreats? What do people do on your retreats, Luis?
The retreat, for me, how I take it is like the word describes, it's a retreat. So it's like a treat for yourself. For me, it's an elevated vacation with intention. So many of us people go on vacations and you find yourself by a body of water looking at your screen, intoxicating yourself for the most part is what general people do on vacation. And it's, yes, you've put yourself in a new place, in a new setting, but you're still in the same habitual patterns of scrolling and numbing your body and your mind. And for me, a retreat is like a conscious, elevated vacation where you're going there with set intentions to just come back to yourself, to be in a container where you're able to peel back the layers that have grown over time, and an experience to learn and expand and live your best life. And there's so many retreats out there, different things that can happen. For me, my retreats are always centered around returning to the rhythm of earth, spirit, and self. So there's always a deep connection to the earth. There's always space for deep connection to self. And there's always space for a connection to the divine.
Beautiful. I love it. I want to go. When's your next retreat?
Yes, there are 3 retreats coming up for the remainder of the year. November 28th to December 3rd, I am going to Mexico City. And this is a luxurious, thoughtfully curated experience to get to enjoy Mexico City like never before. Visiting different sacred sites that I have access to with relationships that I've built with locals over time. And Mexico City for me is a very special place. It's where my mom is from. It's where I've traveled my whole life as a child. Within the last 5 years, I've gone on my own to experience the best that the city has to offer. So this 6-day retreat is my condensed version of the best for Mexico City. Eating at the best vegan restaurants, visiting different sites, different excursions and activities, going to local markets with vendors that I've built relationships with over time, taking people to my favorite crystal shop where I buy all of my crystals almost exclusively for prices that you can't find them here in the States. And going to like vendors for my local Mexican jewelry where I get a lot of my Mexican silver jewels. And my lady gives everyone beautiful rates that she gives to me. So that's November 28th to December 3rd, Mexico City. And then December 26th to 29th, the day after Christmas, I am hosting our next Sacred Adventure camping retreat. And that is in Central Florida. And that one's very earthy. It's like glamping, but rustic at the same time. And it's a space for just like deep rest and connection. At our last camping retreat, someone said, I've been just like so go that when you're camping, you become bored and you're faced with your boredom and why you're bored. And just like having that space of doing nothing opens up a lot of things we've repressed or things that we aren't aware of since we're constantly going. And January 4th to the 8th, I am co-hosting a retreat to Oaxaca, Mexico on the coast at a secluded eco-luxe oasis for the girlies, gays, and days to get wild and free. And that one is clothing optional for everyone to frolic naked on the beach, our beautiful eco-luxe oasis.
Oh, that sounds so fun. Oh, that's amazing. We'll obviously include links to everybody's everything in the show notes, but thank you both for giving us a little background on what you do. I want to ask you about the Coco Market and what about the Coco Market is so special that you keep showing up as vendors. And Corey, you can chime in also, why you keep asking them back as vendors because they're obviously like beautiful people and have such great missions. There are lots of farmers markets all over that you could easily apply to. But what is it about Coco Market that is so special?
For me, I feel like there's so many reasons. I could go off on a lot of different things. I was like one of the first markets I found when I got to Florida. So I lucked out and that Coco Market hadn't yet evolved into something that I maybe wouldn't have gotten into because I was inexperienced at the point. But what I meant by going back to your earlier question about like creating and growing at the same time, Coco Market, I described it as like the perfect soil to grow really anything. And it really provided like a safe space, to try new ideas and styles. There were certain like shortcuts that like truly didn't fit, but it wasn't like this like embarrassing, like horrible thing. Like the people were really nice about it and would give like constructive feedback. Or even if I had to leave the booth for a second, I was never worried that like my register or phone were going to get stolen. Or if I didn't have like a tent or something, I could definitely ask my like neighbor, like, where did you get yours? Like, everyone was like very collaborative and helpful and wanting to see the other vendors succeed. It felt like collaboration over competition. And it also helped me feel like I had like co-workers in a way because I'm a solopreneur. I was a solopreneur. I still am. It was nice to feel like there were like familiar faces and regular customers. It's definitely where I found some of my regular customers. And it's where I actually found like other venues too. And again, like not in a competitive way. Like it felt like I could feel like Corey and the team like rooting for me as I was like branching off into other things. Like I found this woman who was a manager of a luxury hotel in Boca that asked if I would come pop up there. And now I see a lot of other Coco Market vendors popping up there, and it's definitely been helpful to break into like the luxury space that I'm looking for. And that was all through just a conversation at Coco Market. I also found like another paid opportunity for someone who heard what I was doing and wanted to have me in their like recycled swimsuits. So it led to so many unexpected things beyond just the rescue collection and beyond the clothing. It connected me to so many people. My best sellers are these t-shirts that say for plastic. They're all secondhand t-shirts, even embroidery for any secondhand. And it resonated with so many people at Coco Market. People had really been thinking that. They're like, oh my God, yes, like I do beach leave all the time. Like they're confronting, especially in Florida, because we have such a beautiful ocean really being jeopardized by the plastic problem. So it felt like this hub where people had congregated like in the name of like wellness. It was literally wellness market by nature. And so they had already been thinking about nature and giving back and community, and a lot of the dots had already been connected for them. And so when I presented this, like it already triggered or resonated with something. So I got a lot of my regular customers and friends and coworkers there, and definitely the confidence to like try going other places and not feel like embarrassed to fail.
Yeah. And Luis, for you, what keeps bringing you back to Coco Market?
Coco Market is like a very special place for me. It is something that I feel like I only dreamed of in Florida. So I'm born and raised in West Palm Beach, and I moved to Los Angeles after high school for school. And when I left Florida, I said I would never return. But I returned in 2020 against all odds. And my partner met Corey at his last job, and Corey was always inviting him to her yoga classes. And then Nico was always inviting me to her yoga classes. And I was like, I'm good. I go to a yoga studio here. I don't need to go to this chick's yoga in the park. But then one night he convinced me, and I went to Corey's yoga at Old School Square at the 100-foot Christmas tree. And it was an amazing yoga class. I was like, wow, this surpassed all my expectations. I had a really good time. And then Corey created Coco Market, and Nico, my partner, was always talking about it and telling me to apply. And we went to the first Coco Market in January and February, and I fell in love with it because it is, as Taylor mentions, a wellness market, and it brings the entire community together. As Taylor was talking about how Delray feels just like this magical little portal of wellness and spirituality in South Florida with so many yoga studios and just wellness offerings, that Coco Market brings it all together in one place at one time. So there's like all of these like little pockets of communities that all come together for this event that now happens twice a month. And it's just all your best friends coming together in one space.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a big gathering of celebration and wellness and life and community. And so ever since I've been a part of it, it's just captured my heart, and it's been like a very special space for me to grow into everything I've dreamed of, and has fostered a community that would have been very difficult to create on my own. So yeah, for me, it's like the big part is community, the connections that happen there. I feel like in the beginning, it was called like Coco Connection Market, wasn't it? Coco. Yeah, it was like Coco.
Yeah, it was Coco Connections Market.
And that's like what it like feels like for me. It's just like a place to connect. Every single month, I meet someone new, and I'm just like, wow, I'm just going to keep meeting new people every single month. Like I feel every time like, okay, I know all the solid Coco Market people, but every single time I'm meeting new people who are either interested in the wellness industry, who just moved here, who are just starting their spiritual path, or people who have been in this for their whole life, and then they just randomly decided to come to Coco Market, and they're like, wow, this is everything I've been looking for. So for me, it's the community, the connections, just the people and magical vibes.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you go on Instagram and look at Coco Market, it's always videos of people just like living like such happiness, like embodiments of happiness, and like dancing and like sharing, and community is, I'm so glad that you both touched on that. And community is so powerful. And I think as humans, we crave it, and our society, for 1,000 different reasons, has forgotten that. And we have to make a concerted effort to create a community. And for me, I'm a mom, and it's really having a mom community I didn't realize was going to be such a help. And whatever your thing is, your niche is, community can really save you and create support that you didn't know you needed. And I'm so glad that you both brought that up, because it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me that it's more than just community in terms of your careers, but it really flows over to life, and just like how you can go about your day knowing that you have this stable community in the Coco Market. Does that resonate at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it doesn't take like that long on the eco-friendly sustainability path to understand like community is like the part of the solution for everything, from like the clothing that you want to buy to the food you want to get, to just like feeling good and happy enough to be able to take care of yourself and actually like think about your impact in the world, like to have your like basic survival needs met. So I've
Yeah.
really come to understand how intrinsically important community is to solution to really most of life's issues.
Yeah. And Corey, how do you, this is no small task, and we've discussed it on the episode that you are on, but how do you continuously show up and hold space for this massive community?
Me personally,
Yeah. Like emotionally. Like I feel like that's like a big
Oh.
ask for someone to do.
yeah, it does feel like a big weight on my shoulders. I do a lot of self-care. I love a Louise sound bath. I go to yoga. I have to disconnect from Coco and connect to myself a lot in order to hold this space. But I think that the space does a good job at holding itself now. It's not all me anymore at all. It's all the people that I bring together that hold the collective space. And I think at the beginning, I felt like it was me holding this all together. I'm the glue. And then I realized like, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to bring everybody together and take care of all the little details so it can exist. But like the magic doesn't come from me. The magic comes from all of these people all together holding one another.
I love that. And that actually brings me to my next question, which is how do you vet vendors by creating the ability to create a space that, as you said, is now holding itself up has a lot to do with the people that you invite into the space. So how do you go about deciding who is a vendor and who is not?
It is, again, a lot of pressure and it's a hard task and I make mistakes a lot. I actually, when Luis first applied to the market, I did not accept him. And that is one of my biggest mistakes that I have made to date because he is such an integral piece of this whole thing. And Nico, who I had a pretty long-standing relationship with because he worked at the place I got my matcha and I would go every day. But Nico and Luis wrote me like a long email explaining why they should be a part of the market. And I was instantly like, oh my God, like that. Of course they have to be part of the market. And I changed my mind. I think it all boils down to energy and the energy of the person and the person behind the business is so important. And I have to make sure that energy is right. Someone can have the best product in the whole world and not be the right fit for Coco Market.
Sure.
It's all about the love that the person brings and the love I think that they pour into their business. And that makes a good vendor for Coco Market. In season, we're getting like 150, 175 applications for 50 spots. And so that's a lot of pressure on me to decide who should come in. And I try to bring in 10 new vendors a month. That's like my general rule. But that also means that 10 vendors are not going to get approved that month. And it's been going, we've done 24 events. And so I have long-standing relationships now with a lot of these people. So it's tough. We have like core group, like a family, and I try to bring in new people and we see what works and we see what doesn't work. And we've moved now to a space where we don't have to just have 50 and we can expand a little bit bigger. But I try to be very conscious of who we're bringing in, the type of energy and the type of thing that the person is, whatever it's a service or a product, whatever they have, I need to make sure that's a right balance and the right thing.
Yeah, I imagine that would be a very daunting task. And you said that you made mistakes and you make mistakes. And everyone here is a solopreneur, entrepreneur. And that, I think that's part of the territory. That's part of the journey and learning from those mistakes. So thank you for A, admitting it. And B, being open to making mistakes. And I would love to just open that up if there's any mistakes, or I'm all for those, because I think, again, it goes back to people just thinking that what we see is the finished product and we don't get to see the behind the scenes and the failures and the mistakes that are made in small businesses. So yeah, does anybody else have a mistake that they're like, oh, I made that mistake and it was actually helpful?
I one time brought a dark arts witch into Coco Market who was...
Oh, please explain, please.
I don't want to call anybody out, but it's very tricky when I'm bringing in these energy workers and light beings and and healers. Because who am I to be the judge of whether something someone is doing is legit? Like, it's tough. So that vetting process is a little bit tough. Like, I will try to go to someone's event if they're like a energy healer or whatever. But I brought in a vendor once, and I was sent an Instagram video of her like chanting satanic ritual type things. And then another vendor said, whenever she's here, I get a really bad feeling, and I just think she's casting spells on us. And I got some crazy feedback of this one vendor who, like, I don't know if someone's a good witch or a bad witch. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to be like the only one to make that decision of who. I brought in another light being energy worker who sent me the nastiest email I've ever received in my entire life because I didn't invite her back to the market because she was posting some crazy stuff on Instagram, and I just didn't feel safe in her presence. And then she sent me this email that was like, I release your parasitic frequency and you are the darkest soul I've ever met. So there are some characters.
Yeah. No, that's refreshing to hear. Not really refreshing. That's the wrong word. But, it's just like a crazy journey. Like, entrepreneurship is just a crazy journey. And when you're opening yourself up to work with people, it's like you're opening yourself up to work with people, like anyone. And so I love that we have the group here that we do, because everybody is very energetically aware. And how do you, Taylor and Luis, you can also chime in, how do you protect your own energy and mindset when you're going through just the day-to-day of being an entrepreneur?
One quick story is one of my booth neighbors at Coco Market one time was doing like cupping, and she at the end of the day turned to me and was like, he said, holy shit, I don't know if I'm gonna make it, because I think just by virtue of being a healer, people come to you and are like comfortable telling you their trauma within a few minutes of meeting you, and they expect to feel maybe healed very quickly. And so I think he was like had his cups ready to go, and I think everyone was meeting and just like telling him like the most horrible thing that happened to them, and he's like standing there at this
no.
So I think that was like happening to him all day. And he's just like, I hope I helped. So like, I'm sure he know if all of their problems are going to be solved overnight. I think I also get a little bit of a cop out almost because I'm not there to like heal people physically. I'm selling clothes. So I do try and teach people that clothes have kind of healing. Like we said, everything has a frequency, and clothes that are made from polyester nylon spandex like vibrate at the same frequency as someone who's at yearly death. It's like 0 to 10 megahertz, whereas linen operates at 5,000 megahertz, and it's going to be like a very healing fabric. So it's a way to like raise your vibe. And then as far as like what I do to take care of myself, there's a quote that I was just thinking of. I think it said your self-confidence comes from the reputation you have with yourself. And I really do trust myself to not make the mistakes that I'm preaching about anymore. And it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning too, where you don't have to be like perfect and have everything figured out to start. Just start and fail forward and be comfortable and build a thick skin and know that you're going to have some embarrassments and mistakes, but you're staying in your integrity and really true to yourself. Like, I'm preaching and bitching about plastic all day, and I know that I'm not. And I feel like I can confidently like say those things now. And I forgot where I'm going with all of this, but
okay.
That's how I'm
protecting your energy.
Yes. How do you take care of yourself? And I think I throw a lot of stones, and I'm doing my best to live in a non-glass house and really speak from a place of like, I know that I am trying my best and that I'm transparent in areas where I'm making mistakes. Like, I know that I like drive like a Jeep, which is notoriously bad on gas. Like, I'm not doing everything perfectly, but I'm definitely not waiting until I'm perfect to start talking about the things that matter. And I know that I'm doing the absolute best I can to like speak from a place of not feeling like a hypocrite. I think that's like how I've been taking care of myself. So I just feel like I'm trying to be as honest and like have as much integrity as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And it feels like the opposite from when I was working in corporate America, and I always be like bullshitting my way through everything of trying to like make it sound like I had done more work than I really had, or like this. I don't know. I felt like I was just so bullshit, and now I don't feel that way. And so it feels like way easier to have energy in your work and feel like really good about it.
Yeah.
I think Taylor said something that was super interesting. Having self-confidence and having integrity and authenticity, I think those are like key to putting yourself out there and knowing that you might fail. You don't have to have all of the answers. You don't have to know everything in order to speak your truth, to stand up for what you believe in, and to do something that you believe in. Like you can come and you can start a business without having all your ducks in a row. I started Coco Market having no idea if I was going to do 3 or 25. You don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah. And I think that if anybody takes anything away from this, I think it's that message and community. If just creating this sense of community wherever your niche is or wherever you find that support, if you can fail forward, which I love that you said that, Taylor, because I think that is one of the best pieces of advice, which actually brings me to, and I love to ask this to all my guests, but what is the best career advice all of you have been given? All of you go. Luis, what about you?
The best career advice I've been given, and I mentioned earlier, is just believing in yourself and doing it. Because that's always the first step. Starting hosting retreats or these upscale sound healing experiences. And throughout any career, we're always going to have self-criticism, self-doubt, and imposter syndrome, and we're our own blockage. Like we've all mentioned, you can never have all of your ducks in a row. You can never be as ready as you want to be. And it's always just taking that first step. And for me, that first step is just believing in yourself, even if you're nervous, even if you're scared, even if you don't think you have all the answers, it's still believing in yourself, trusting that you can do it, and just doing it. And you'll learn along the way. You'll refine it each time or get better.
I know. It's funny that you say that, Luis, because my favorite, I think I've said this on other episodes because it like just always speaks to me. The Nike logo and motto is just do it. And I've talked about this with friends before. We're like, it's just so good because it really just comes down to that where it's just do it. Just do it. Who cares if you fail? Like you're the only one who really cares. But yeah, thank you. I love that. Does anybody else have any sage career advice for our listeners or me?
Yeah, I do. My little sister definitely gave me some of the best advice I ever have, and I still come back to it all the time. I was getting like really overwhelmed by making the business this like big success and like hitting like kind of milestones that I feel like had been fed to me just from like, external sources that didn't actually really resonate. And I was just like so obsessed with like getting this many pieces made, and I was just at a complete standstill. Nothing was happening because I'm so focused on this like larger than life like good terms of success. And she was like, "Why don't you just go back to the part of the business that you actually like?" So whenever I'm like feeling overwhelmed by these insurmountable like things, I feel like I just go back to the part that I like really love, which is the creative process, coming up with new ideas, and it's getting myself dressed. And that's what I really, so I go back to that advice all the time. And then the other advice that I would give other people is that developing a thick skin and developing the ability to be an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart, and just know that your character development will put you against certain obstacles. But I think if you want a really good doctor, would you want to go to a hard school that really put them through some serious challenges? If you want a good designer, wouldn't you want them to like these highly intense challenges? Like this is character development and growing thick skin. Like, it takes, I don't know, a lot of really emotional failures. Like, there are some markets where you'll be sitting there and no one buys anything, and like, the amount of wear and tear that like on your heart for something that we've crafted like that. I'm really grateful for those experiences. Fortunately, Coco Market has not been anything like that, but like other markets, and just like you really do develop like self-confidence through having it tested. So even on days when you're feeling like bad about yourself, like this is part of the process, and you're going to push through, and you're going to feel so much better about yourself for knowing like I could stand this idea and keep going, even when it felt like the world was like telling me no, or like that I felt like embarrassed. I'm so glad that I could know that I had my own back in those situations. And then the really good times, like Coco Market time, will come, and you will make money, and it'll all be okay.
That's not like it all comes around, right? It's just like a cycle. Corey, I know I asked you this on our episode, but if you have any career advice for anybody, what would it be?
I like the question that you asked at the beginning, like how do you create and grow at the same time? I think the general theme of this whole conversation has been like, you don't have to have all the answers to start. And Luis's advice and Taylor's advice, like all of it together is if you have vision, just chase it. Lead with your heart. And if you believe in yourself, you can just start, and you don't have to have it all mapped out. You don't have to have it all figured out. And it doesn't need to be successful right away. I think courage and discipline and vision are important. And if you can have those things, then you...
I love that you touched on longevity.
Yeah, I only have my experience, right? The first Coco Market, I lost $600. That was not successful. And I was like, all right, let's
Do it again.
Like, I know I have something here. And just, I think when I realized that like I can just move through this state of flow that I have found, that I was creating happiness in other people and I was creating this community. And I said, there's no way that this can be a failure. I just have to keep putting myself into it. I just have to I didn't have any expectation for it. And I think that probably helped me too, because it surpassed anything I could have dreamed of. Now I have a lot of expectations. But when I started, I was like, what? Now this is like my literally end all be all. This is like my livelihood. But yeah, you don't have to know what it's going to look like.
I was just going to say that even if you have a plan, the end result is probably most likely not going to look anything like the plan you have in your head. But that's so interesting that you lost $600 on the first Coco Market and now it's just like crazy. I love that. I think that is such a great piece of little knowledge tip from you, because I think a lot of people at that point would have been like, oh, it didn't work, on to the next. But you just knew that it was something.
One of the vendors at the first Coco Market at the very end, she came up to me and she said, can you please do this every? And it was like that. Hearing from her, it just really kept me going. It was Jordy with Puka Maui. She is still a vendor and she comes back every month. Yeah, hearing the feedback from people, I was like,
awesome. Guys, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your time and energy. This was like so much fun. And I'm so excited that we got it to work all logistically and technologically and all of the things and energetically. So thank you all for being here. Is there anything, we're going to include everybody's everything in the show notes, websites, handles, ways to reach all of this. But Corey, the next Coco Market, which we are hopefully going to have this episode out beforehand, is going to be at
Coco Market Delray has moved to Old School Square, which is city center right downtown Delray. It's on Swinton and Atlantic. It's going to be great. First Sunday of every month. The first one at Old School Square is October.
I love it.
And the second one is actually the second Sunday. So that's November 12th, because there is a dog event Old School Square on free.
I love that. Cool. Awesome. October 1st sounds like so fresh and ready. I feel like it's going to be a really fun area. It's a little bit bigger. If you are local to Delray and you're listening to this, it's right where the farmers market is in the wintertime too, right?
And soon people will be saying it's right where Coco Market
And
is.
soon, exactly. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm so grateful for your precious time and energy. And if anything resonated with you, please feel free to share with a friend and subscribe. If you're interested in career coaching, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Courtney@resume-careers.com and follow me on Instagram at Courtney Austin Page. Thank you so much and see you next week.